So we're live. That doesn't mean anything quite yet. So anyway, you know what we need to do? We need to drop this in the Appwrite Discord. What we need to do?
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm actually going to do it. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. All right. I'm live on LinkedIn. Not gotten the YouTube yet. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Let's see here. Hold on real quick. I'm trying to see something real quick. There we go. Say hey. We'd love to hear from you.
Hello. Hello.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We made it. I posted my vlog today. I'm still trying to get my legs under me from being out for 2.5 weeks on baby break. We had some iced coffee today. So your boy is buzzing very, very well. And Tessa's slamming Red Bull. So between my cold brew and Tessa's Red Bull, we're just going to be vibrating on this live here in a few minutes. But good morning. Say hey. We'd love to hear from you. Chris, good morning. I see you in the comments. So all that being said, the reason why I tell people to comment, right? And I thought about this morning. I think about work all the time. And because Tessa, as you know, as you're trying to build community, it's a 24/7 job, right? So I was like, realistically, like this show now, like the speaker is secondary. And I don't mean that at all for anybody who's my guest. But the purpose of this is essentially a meetup. Like I want this to be a daily meetup where you can come together and you can talk it out in the comments and say, hey, and DM people. Because what I've realized is that the problem that most people have with networking is that they need an excuse to message somebody, right? So for example, I was a host of Render ATL this past year. Shout out Render ATL for having me second year in a row. And one of the things I did for every single one of my sessions, Tessa, I wish I emceed your stage, was basically I told people, I said, pull out your phones and to the left or right of you, connect with the person on LinkedIn. And literally, I was like, I had so many people come up to me afterwards like, Taylor, thank you for giving me permission to do that. And I thought that was fascinating that people needed permission to connect to the person to the left or right of you. And so what I've realized is that networking, what I want to do is I want to be a conduit for people to just give you permission to reach out, right? So again, what I would do is network, DM every single person in the comments every single day, right? So Chris needs to message Elliot. Yes, Bull's in a coffee shop. Yeah, with all the caffeine. To message Christina, right? To message Jarara, to message, LinkedIn user from Austin. I don't know who that was, but hello, LinkedIn user from Austin, right? So like message everybody, right? And do that. And so again, that's why I do this, right? Taya, same thing here, right? Let's see here. What else? Shout out Appwrite. They're not the sponsor of the show, but shout out Appwrite. Appwrite, it's great. Really excited to talk with Tessa. Oh, and also too, before we dive in, this is gonna be cool. I'm gonna stop yapping here in a second. Tessa and I, we are pioneering, folks. We are pioneering a new question list for Guidance Counselor 2.0, brand new. I've felt, I got very philosophical over paternity break. Right, started the Dads in Tech meetup. Right, changed up my Guidance Counselor 2.0, and I just want to get to deeper conversations with folks. Right, not necessarily. We'll talk job search stuff. I'll never move away from that, but try to go a little bit deeper. So for those of you tuning in today, a whole new set of questions. I'm actually come up with questions. I know my little spiel for 4 years is like, I don't have set questions. Well, I have set questions now. So we're going to ask them. So again, Mark's good to see you. Dominic's good to see you as well. All right, enough of me running my mouth. Tessa, let's give the people what they want. Who are you? What do you do? And we'll go from there.
Hello, I am Tessa Mero. I'm head of developer relations at Appwrite. And by the way, I'm seeing the chat, but I can't respond. I didn't log in, but thank you everyone for joining. I'm very excited. There's an audience and people are excited. But yeah, I've been in tech since 2011 professionally. And before that, I've been in tech for fun as a hobby since the early 90s. I'm on a computer every day, forever. And this is all I know. This is my comfort space when I'm on a computer. When I leave the house, things get a little more stressful. Not my comfort zone anymore.
Amen. It's funny. When I went to South by Southwest this past year, that it's not. There's nerds there for sure, but it's a lot more like founder business focused. I didn't know. Like I felt uncomfortable. I was like, where are my people? Right? Like I need my people. I like my space. And when I got to talk to business people, I'm like, I don't know. What do I ask you about? Right? So I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into these questions, right? And again, these questions that I came up with are really, I really want to kind of get a little bit more high level with people. I know most of my spiel has been practical, tactical stuff, and so Tessa, I want to start out with a pretty heavy-headed question first and foremost. What makes a fulfilling career, right? I've kind of gone through this myself really over the last 3 or 4 years. I took a 40% pay cut from my time at Vaco because of the market. So, I mean, I've had to reevaluate things, right? So for you, what makes what makes a fulfilling career?
That's been different. Every few years, I probably had a different answer to that question. Probably 10 years ago, it was really about like getting a job with a higher pay. And that's what I cared about the most.
Yep.
And then there was getting the job title I wanted. I wanted to become a developer advocate. I didn't care where or when. I just wanted to have that job and be able to travel and do developer community stuff. And then there was a point in my career where I wanted to move up from a mid-level role into senior director positions. And, after I was able to achieve that like 4 or 5 years ago, then it was like, okay, what's next? And fell into a head of developer relations role.
Yeah.
And then what's next? There's nowhere next after this. This is the maximum.
Yeah.
So I have asked that question to myself, like, what is fulfilling to my career? And I've actually been working with an executive coach that like has helped me kind of figure this out. And what excites me the most is learning skills and learning areas that I have absolutely no skills in. So I've been at Appwrite for 2.5 years and been just doing everything that I'm good at. And then I'm also trying to do a lot of things that I'm not good at. So I've been taking a lot of workshops, trying to learn like behind the scenes as much as I can so I can contribute and help in other areas that, I originally wouldn't have been able to help in. And you can bring so much more value to a company. It doesn't matter what position you're in or what company you're in. If you're expanding your skill set and contributing to the growth of the company and contributing to other teams, it makes a big impact.
Yeah.
And that's what fulfills me the most, is just being able to, I guess the words I would say is feeling important in more ways than your current role.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I think, I've talked with a lot of people in tech a lot just about, I got to go get the title change. I got to go get the salary range. I got to go get this, or I got to go get that. Right. And what's interesting is that you kind of sit back, and I don't know if you felt this way, you kind of start climbing these rungs, and you're kind of like, once you hit the areas you want to hit, you kind of go, okay. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, for me, like one of my big goals was to keynote a tech conference, right? And Clark Sell and that conference gave me the opportunity last year, and I did it. And then it's like, well, shit, what's next?
Yeah.
Right.
What's next?
And so I've really had to, over the course of the year, especially, with finances too, like what's important. Right. And for me, it's being respected. It's having a strong community. It's obviously providing for my family, but ultimately, like, you can only have so many titles, and realistically, outside of Fang, you can only get so much money, right? I mean, everybody's kind of got the same rate. So again, I think that's huge. I think it's huge. Is there anything you're trying to really focus on learning right now? That's kind of a new area for you?
I'm working on a lot of different areas. On my personal side, I'm learning about product growth and growth overall, even though we do have a growth team, but I work close with them. And to best collaborate with another team, you need to learn a lot of what they do and what their goals are and how to best improve metrics in those areas. It just helps a lot.
I love that.
In the past, before we launched our pricing page, I was reading and understanding and learning everything about pricing strategy. By the way, it was really boring and I did not like it. And I expressed that to my boss, but he never asked me or forces me to like help out in different areas. It's something I just like to volunteer myself for and want to get involved in. Sometimes, I'm able to contribute. Sometimes I'm just like, this is too difficult and, I just can't understand this stuff. And then I'll step out and try to help in different areas.
I love
And
that.
it's okay to admit that to yourself. You don't have to be good at everything.
Do you feel, and again, this is why I like these kind of high level questions, so we can take it a lot of different ways. Do you feel that in corporate America that we don't let people fail enough?
I guess it depends on the company and the people you work with. Like
Sure.
where I work, it's okay to fail. I screw up all the time.
Sure.
I just don't say it in public so nobody knows, just my coworkers do. And I also, if no one knows I screwed up, I like to be very vocal about it and share it with my colleagues so that way they are comfortable with being open about screwing up with a task or screwing up with a process.
Yeah.
And then, but it's really about focusing on not making excuses and taking action items
Yeah.
and fixing it.
Yeah. Yep.
If you're
100%.
constantly making excuses on why you made a mistake, how do you learn from that? How do you move forward from that? How can people respect you from that?
I love that. I love that. Drawer coming in here, very inspirational story. Love that you continue to push yourself out of your comfort zone, even at the highest level. Elliot comes in here and goes, I've been following the advice, focus less on your weaknesses, focus on making your strength your superpower, and that they can't ignore your value. Have you ever felt that way? Do you feel that you needed to get your superpower settled before you can focus on improving your weaknesses?
I've never really thought about that. I just sometimes I just focus on too many areas that I get lost on my focus. And then I start getting mad anxiety to the point where I can't sleep at night because I can't get my thoughts organized. I want to focus on these areas that I'm really good at, but I want to help and contribute to these areas that I'm not good at, but I want to do this and that and that. And then I'm just like in my head.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And Elliot, I mean, I think my biggest thing is like, I've been told growing up, I was too emotional, right? I cried when I lose hockey games, right? I would just be a big ball of emotion. And what I've realized now, from that's actually super strength of mine, and it's passion, right? And so Elliot, like, yeah, I have a lot of weaknesses. I'm terrible at detail orientedness. You can ask my wife. I get about 60% right all the time. There's I'm not the best listener, which I'm trying to work on. Like, there's a lot of things I'm weak at, but man, if you can really focus on your strengths, especially in an interview, going back to the interview side and being able to communicate that to a Tessa, I think that's huge. I think that's huge. Let's see here. The authenticity in this convo is a breath of fresh air. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate it. That's my goal. That's why we're going to change these questions up a little bit. And Brandon, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. All right. So next question, after doing these podcasts a lot, I really hear, John, it's good to see you. I really hear a lot of like, well, that's great. People, getting money and making jobs. I want to hear about failure. So Tess, I want to ask you this. What would be maybe one of your biggest regrets, biggest professional failures that you've had in your career, and how have you bounced back from it, or have you bounced back from it?
I have to think back. The first thing that comes to mind is my first year being in tech, 2011. A couple different things. The like little tiny failure is I was so embarrassed about my coding skills that I never asked for a code review.
Really?
A year into writing code. And I found a senior software engineer who mentored me. And I was like, I haven't asked anyone, because I was like a one-person development team in an engineering department who were all engineers that needed like custom applications to do their work. So I was like that person. But being able to ask for help in that area is helpful. But let's talk about the real failure where I thought I was going to get fired immediately. It was so bad. I still feel guilty about it. This was like 2012.
Oh my gosh.
I was going through this application I've been working on for a year, and I'm just like, oh, there's all these database. I haven't made a backup in like 1 or 2 weeks, by the way. And I'm like, oh, a backup every 1 or 2 weeks is okay. And I was only building internal tools. And I decided to just clean up the database a bit. I'm like, oh, I'm not using these tables. Delete, delete, drop table, drop table, drop table. These are all archive tables anyways. And all of a sudden, the website stopped working.
Oh, Jesus.
And the website's being used by 3 companies from Germany, from China, and from the US, all internal engineering teams.
Oh, no.
And my email started flooding. Just, I can't get the website to work. I need to do my work. I'm going to get in trouble if this is not working. And everyone was so angry at me. I was just so stressed out. Like, what do I do? What do I do? I tried to fix it. I couldn't fix it. I didn't have the backup data. So I did like a 1 or 2 week backup, restored it from the last version. And that didn't fix the problem, by the way, because everyone was still really upset at me. And ever since that, every time I worked on anything, I've made like 2 backups a day, automated it with cron jobs, sent those backups, not just the whole website and database, but the website database itself, the website itself, and the database itself, all to cloud servers and my local server. So I was just like throwing the backups all over, everywhere, every single day. And then it gave me this peace of mind that I can never make that kind of like screw up again.
Yeah.
But
I love that.
I'm still like stressed out about it, even though that was like what, 15, 13, 14 years ago.
I'm telling you, stuff like that's traumatic. Elliot brings up in the past, I've had emotional breakdown because I fear code reviews will stop making PRs for a while. I want to kind of ask this high level test about this comment. What would you tell folks who fear code reviews?
The earlier you start with asking for code reviews, the better, because when I waited a year before I started getting code reviews, and the amount of stuff I learned in just like a 10-minute conversation, the senior engineer can just like look at it immediately and be like, why are you doing it like that? You know, you can do it faster. You know, there's PHP shorthand. Here, let me show you some resources on how to do this the right way. Oh, why are you doing this way? Like, there's an easier way to do it, to clean up your code a lot better. And I haven't coded in a long time, but it was what I was doing all day, every day, 40 hours a week. And I loved it, but it was also very stressful because if you screw up, you don't get to sleep or have weekends until it is fixed.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of those weekends of just nonstop working, trying to fix a bug to keep my job.
Yeah. Brett comes in and goes, fear code reviews, get over your ego, right? Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I'm not a developer, but I do know about being publicly critiqued, and it's I mean, we're humans, right? We don't like it, but I think it's like everything else. And I know this is kind of a cop-out answer, but it's like public speaking with me, right? Like, I grew up with a major speech impediment. I couldn't pronounce half of my L's, TH's, R's, S's. I had a stutter. And when it comes to public speaking, like, I mean, if you saw videos of me in college, like, I just was awful. And it's just like, you have to keep doing it. Like, honestly, the things you don't like to do, you got to double down the most. Right. And it starts to become easier. Kent, my goalie from hockey, is tuning in. I love it. What's up, buddy? Let's see here. What else? And then I saw Dom up here. Hold on. What did he say? He said, what if we have nothing but weaknesses? Shut up. Don't stop being negative. None of this negativity talk on a Wednesday. So I want to go to next question, Tessa. And again, thank you for being the guinea pig. I think I'm loving this new kind of question format. But talking to a lot of people right now, I'm sure you are too, that are either coming out of college, early stage of career, kind of entry junior level developers, even making the move from junior to mid. And there may be a lot of people who have a job right now that they don't even really want, that they took because they needed the money and they don't know where they want to go in their career. What would be your advice for folks, especially in this obviously job market right
now? Like, advice for right this moment, I would say, and I have some advice to provide because I've been reviewing resumes a lot, especially this year, nonstop resumes. And what I've noticed, the ones that do land interviews are quite different from all of the other hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applicants. I mean, there's hundreds of applications I'm going through. I would say 90% of people write their resumes and cover letters with AI. And I dislike it. I dislike it so much because I can't figure out and learn about you as a person.
Correct.
The individuals, which is a very small percentage, who writes in their own authentic words. And I don't judge on spelling and grammar unless the role requires having a very solid writing skill set for a writing related role. But I'm looking for someone where I can like learn about them. If I look them up, if they like wrote some blog posts, if they're posting on social media somewhere where they're, out there sharing their knowledge, sharing things that they're learning, if I can figure out who they are as a person, part of our job application process is answering questions. Why do you want to work for Appwrite?
Yeah.
Like, if I get a feeling that they're applying to our company and not blindly applying to hundreds of companies, and you can tell by their application if they're just blind throwing their application anywhere they can. I don't want to hire someone who's just crossing their fingers and just willing to take any job. I want someone who wants to be here. And if I can see that, if there's any kind of indication that they want to be here, like they can easily land an interview. And very few people do that. For example, I was hiring an intern. Out of like 400 or 500 applications, there was only one person out of the stack who joined our community, talked to our community, engaged with people, talked about what he wants to do, started having nice conversations. It's not like conversations where they drop you a DM with an essay long of words saying why they want to work at Appwrite, which I dislike a lot. But it's like, hey, how are you doing? Like, just having a real conversation. It's like, oh, who's this person? Like, they applied. We definitely need to review their application. And that person ended up landing a job. That's the only person that was different than everyone else. Like, you have to stand out. You have to be different. And you have to be very vocal about what you want to do. Talk to everyone. Talk to strangers. Tell the whole world what you want. What are your goals? If you're not sharing with the whole world, how are they going to know what you want to do?
What would you say to folks who maybe feel like, I get a lot of DMs, I'm sure you do too, of like, just really kind of at the end of the rope, have problems finding a job, maybe even don't even like the career they're in. Have you had a point in your career where you've been kind of in a rut with what you're doing, and have you pivoted at all?
That's happened to me one time.
Okay.
In, I think, 2010. I just got my software. I don't even put this in my resume. I don't think I've ever told anyone about this job, by the way. I got a job as a junior software engineer at a photography company. And I was only there for 2 months, by the way. And my boss was the most condescending person ever. Like, to access everything required a password. He's like, sorry, like, I don't trust my software engineers because I think they're probably going to steal from me. So you'll never, ever get any password. You have to ask for my permission, and I'll walk up and I'll type in the password for you. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. I'm not going to argue with that.
Sure.
And also, the pay started out very, very low.
Sure.
With the promise that it's going to increase later at $10 an hour, by the way, which is disgusting.
Yeah.
But that was like an opportunity for me. And one day, like a month into the job, the boss looked at me and said, I'm just letting you know, in software engineering, you'll never make more than $10 an hour. Never. And you're really lucky to have this job, and you're never going to find a better job anywhere else.
Jesus.
And I just want to make that clear. And that pissed me off so much that I started taking sick days already to go interview at other companies. And I ended up landing a software engineering job at $50,000 a year for a junior level role, which to me was like a lot of money back then. USD, by the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, like I think the big thing is I think the kind of the theme over the last like 3 to 5 minutes of what you say is you just gotta be proactive. You have to take your career into your own hands, right? You can't just sit back and let it come to you. So I want to kind of continue to move on these questions again. Great conversations. It's breath of fresh air, especially from the last 4 years of content I've done. You're a head of developer relations at Appwrite. And I think that's badass. What would you say is your secret sauce? How did you get to where you're at in your career? Like, what do you think you bring to the table that not many people bring to the table?
So it started out being stuck in a mid-level position for so long and not knowing how to get out of that and how to move up, because I spent so much time, working extra, doing so much more with no results. I'm still stuck in the same type of position. So I actually reached out to someone I met from a conference, and every opportunity and every moment that has changed my life was someone I met from a meetup or a conference, believe it or not, my entire life. So he was like director of Auth0 at that time, or one of those tech companies. And I'm just like, it was nice meeting you at the conference. I was just wanted to get some advice. Like, how did you become a director? That's just so cool. I wish to be a director one day. And he's like, oh, I'm like happy to share you some tips. And then he's like, my secret is I have an executive coach. I'm just like, oh, what is an executive coach? And like, how much does that cost? And why are you willing to pay an executive coach when, mentors don't cost anything? And he kind of went over all of that with me. And he actually shared the contact information of his executive coach. I signed a contract with the executive coach in 2019. I'm still working with him. 5 years of working with my executive coach. So what I've been doing is kind of like, he gives me homework every single month, books to read. We talk about my skill sets. He talks about like, hey, let's talk about your strongest skill sets. And then let's like dig deep into that. He's like, you know what? You're wrong. Your strong skill sets are not strong skill sets. And you need to work on improving that. Like everything he says is like very hurtful, but it's the hard truth. And you have to hear it. When everyone's saying, oh, you're so good at that, maybe you're really not. Paying someone to tell you the hard truth is worth it. And I've been able to really improve on every skill in every area and kind of put it to work. And then I have to report back to the coach. I'm like, this is what I've did to improve this.
Yeah.
This is the impact it's made. And it's so helpful. And not only just an executive coach, it's just been nonstop, like reaching out to people, asking for advice, like, what kind of resources and things you've learned to get to that point.
Yeah.
But it's just nonstop, like reaching out and being very vocal about what I want to do. Making random Facebook posts in 2018 saying, one day I'm going to be in a leadership position. You watch me. It's like kind of embarrassing. Like, why would I post that on social media?
Like, hey, you're manifesting it. I love it. Manifesting
everything I post in the past is like kind of cringy. I'm just like, I'm so glad.
Of course. So you really think your kind of secret weapon has been your executive coach then?
That has been the main thing. Okay. And you'd think that would be enough, but I'm at the point where I just feel like nothing is enough because I want to keep 10xing everything. So I actually joined an executive leadership organization maybe 2 months ago. It's a really expensive organization to join, where you meet with a group of other leaders. Most of the people on my team are like CEOs, investors, or people in like high level positions. They're groups of about 8 to 10 people each. And you meet every 2 weeks for about an hour and a half, and you kind of report back to each other on things you're working on and improving. So it's a little different than working with an executive coach, because these individuals are not executive coaches. They're people in your position where like, okay, these are my strengths. Your strengths are actually my weaknesses. Let's share information. Oh, here's a scenario. Like, what would you do in this situation? And then I would share information on what I would do in their situation. Like, we all just help each other. We're like personal board of directors.
I love it. Let me ask you this. This would be kind of a deep question. You always say nothing's ever good enough. Are you generally happy?
That's an interesting question. And I really don't know. Like, my perspective, I'm happy. I'm happy with my family life. I'm happy with my job, my work. I'm happy with my home. Everything is good. But then you run into the situation where you're just like, but what do I want to do in 5 years? What do I want to do in 10 years? Or 2 years? Or what do I want to do when I retire? Am I going to freak out and just like lay on the couch all day and just slowly wither away? Or am I going to work? Do I want to start a company? Like, I'm just so all over the place with my future. Like, I get unhappy thinking about the future. Like, I don't know. I'm so comfortable with the now.
Yeah.
And I think people run into this same situation with their current life. If they're
100%.
in a junior role, if they're just fresh out of college, it's so uncomfortable to think about any kind of change in your life. And it's scary because you don't like not understanding what the outcome is going to be and what to expect is an uncomfortable situation. And if, like you've mentioned, you don't put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you can't get positive change. Maybe the change is going to be terrible, but then you learn from it and then you get better change later on.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because, I can tell you kind of have the same motor that I do, right? Always going, nothing's ever good enough. Iterate, 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 keep going, keep going. And I think for a lot of people like us, and I think I think a lot of people out there, I don't think sometimes we have a second to just ask ourselves like, hey, we good? Is everything okay? I think for a lot of go-getters, and one thing I've been very mindful of is asking myself, am I happy? Because I think a lot of times in our careers, we can just always to the next rung, like we've talked about, always to the next thing. And I think being able to be like, what's important, right? I mean, paternity break obviously has me way in my feels right now, but like, it's realizing what's important, right? And trying to be focused on that from a happiness perspective. Because if you're, and I'm telling myself this too, if your happiness is tied to work, I think you're going to be relatively unhappy. So,
I was at a point where I felt very unhappy and I couldn't figure out why.
yeah.
It was like around 2018 or 17-ish.
Yeah.
Not only just being stuck in a mid-level role and not knowing how to move up, but I was also extremely overweight and I couldn't like get myself to look in the mirror without being like ashamed. I couldn't even walk 2 flights of stairs without breathing heavily and I would just eat so much food. It would be embarrassing to eat out with people because I would have to eat multiple meals to be full. But I've kind of like, you get to the point where you feel emotionally rock bottom that it's time for change everywhere and you'll do what it takes to make a change. And the hardest part about change is changing your patterns and changing behaviors and changing, what you're doing each day and adding exercise to my daily routine and eating less food is the hardest thing to do in the world. It's easy for people to say who does it already.
Yeah.
But now I've been exercising for 5 years. So it's easy to get myself to get up and go to the gym. Before, not working out for 10 years straight and being overweight, I was like crying on the treadmill. I literally was crying in tears, but luckily no one was judging at the gym. Just walking on the treadmill, that's how difficult it was. Push yourself through the hardest things and the outcome can be good.
Man, so good. So good. Thank you for sharing. That means a lot. All right. So as we wrap up here, again, I'm interested if you are still watching, and the chat's been great. Let me know if you like this format. It's kind of the format I'm going. It's a little bit more high level, allows the individuals to kind of give more of their story like Tessa just did. And so thank you for that. Tessa, as we wrap up here, I want to ask you kind of just a few random questions. But again, thank you again for being so open and transparent. It means so much. One of the questions, I tweeted this yesterday and I got some pushback about the Olympics. And basically, my thought is I think there's too many sports. I think we should just go back to having like the original 12 or however many there was. Like we don't need handball. But that being said, are you a fan of the Olympics right now? Are you watching? Are you not watching? If you are watching it, what's kind of your favorite sport right
now? So I haven't been watching the Olympics, but I'm a big fan of the memes that's been being created from the Olympics.
Yes.
But the whole pole thing, going over the pole thing, and for some reason I got stuck watching the NSYNC swimming Olympics. What is that one called?
Yeah, I know you're talking about like the dance,
Yeah.
like the dancing swimmers.
It's so mesmerizing.
They
I don't
moonwalked, Tessa.
Yeah.
The U.S. team moonwalked upside down in the water.
I watched it like 3 times in a row. I'm just like, "This is amazing. How do they do that?" They like every single movement is like perfectly in sync with each other.
It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, and then Gerard, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And then Brandon, you go, Tessa. I love that. Next question, and this is one of the questions I had. So, what did you want to do for your career in grade school? And knowing yourself now, do you think you would have been good at it?
So, I know this answer because in 10th grade, we had to write a letter to ourselves of where we're gonna be at in our lives in 10 years. And I got to read that letter that I wrote when I was 17. But grade school, I probably wanted to be a teacher, but when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a CIA agent or a software engineer, and that's what my letter to myself said. And I opened this letter in my high school reunion, and in my letter says, "Don't talk to anyone but one person named Larry, because everyone at your high school was an asshole and they were mean to you." So I'm like at my reunion, like trying to not talk to people because my old self told me not to talk to anyone. And I went straight to this guy named Larry that I barely remembered and said, "Hey, my letter says that you were always nice to me, so I need to talk to you."
I love that. I love that.
But I didn't become a CIA agent, but I did lean towards the tech career like I thought I would.
I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. So last piece of advice we wrap up here. What would be your biggest piece of career advice to people? I know we talked about it briefly, but what would be the biggest piece of career advice you would tell your younger self? Like if you could go back 10 years from now, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Look up my dream job. We always have a goal of what we want to do, where we want to be, and become that person. Study that job description, learn about those areas, do it on your free time, maybe implement some of those skills you learn in your current job or your current life, like skills translate between professional and personal life, and master it. So when you're sitting in an interview trying to, reach above and beyond to a different kind of role, you can speak comfortably about it.
I love that.
That's what I wish I knew before.
I love that. I love that. New questions are deep. Yeah, we went deep. And again, thank you, Tessa, for being so vulnerable. That's such great advice. Awesome. Tessa, I want to give you a second to plug Appwrite real quick before I got to go. Any updates, anything people should be on the lookout for, anything that's going on that you want to give a shout out to?
Follow our Appwrite account, AppWrite. We just made a big announcement today with an upcoming launch. If you haven't heard of Appwrite, we're an open source backend as a service alternative to Firebase. Definitely check it out. The free tier is very generous, so there's plenty of resources for you to use for your personal projects.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, y'all, thank you again for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. Y'all have a fantastic hump day. Tomorrow, Unicorn Finders, hanging out with a guy named Kevin. And so we're going to talk to him. But otherwise, see y'all tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Central on Unicorn Finders podcast. And go connect with Tessa. She's a gem. And hopefully I'll have a great Wednesday. Tessa, stay on so I can say bye to you. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Thank you, everyone.